Wow, hi everybody.
Hey.
So as Farida said, this is our world premiere and we're sold out, which is incredible. We're the first audience. We're the first audience in the world to see this movie. How cool is that? Thank you, Tribeca Festival, for giving this film such an extraordinary launch into the world. I can't think of a better place to premiere this film. Because as you know, we're just footsteps away from where everything in this movie actually happened. That's really cool. William Friedkin's Cruising was released in early 1980, and I have a feeling a lot of people in this room, based on your wardrobe, have already seen this movie. Is that right? Is there anyone who hasn't seen Cruising? A few, okay. Well, for me, this story started back in 1980. I was 11, and I was watching Siskel and Ebert review Cruising on their TV show. I was clearly too young to see the actual movie, but the images they showed burned into my brain, and apparently they stayed there, because here we are, 45 years later. Before we get into the film, I want to thank a few people. Our producer, John Vicardo, who's right here. John's been with me every step of the way on this 10-year journey to get here. John is a great lover of film and understood instinctively why this story needed to be told. We've made several movies together, and he's pretty much the reason we are all here tonight. So thank you, John. Thank you. I also want to thank our brilliant executive producer, Ron Nicewander, who's also here. Ron has spent his entire career telling stories about our lives and is passionate about preserving our history. And a few other folks I want to thank real quick. Our executive producers, Alan Eichler, Robbie Rogers, Jerry Herman, our co-producer, Amy Flaherty, our associate producers, Adam Barron, who's here, Jeff Nelson, and Tennille Oldham, who's here somewhere. Where are you? And there's so many other people here tonight who worked on this film, and also some very special individuals who actually lived this story, and you'll soon be meeting them on screen. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for trusting me with your story. You know who you are, and this film belongs to you too. Thank you to my husband, Talis, who has been living with this project as long as I have. Your love and support have meant everything to me. And the two most important people in my life, my mom and dad, of course, Jack and June. You supported me every step of the way, and I should also note, you had the good sense not to take me to see Cruising when it came out in 1980. So thanks again for being here tonight. After the film, I'll be back for a Q&A with a very special guest, so I hope you'll stick around, and thanks again for being here.
Congratulations, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thank you all for sticking around.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.
It's gonna apparently thunderstorm outside, so you're in the best place. Yeah, oh yeah.
I didn't bring my
Just
umbrella.
brace yourself. No. So Jeffrey, you're, for people that don't know, your previous films exploring luminaries, really kind of large in life figures as Tab Hunter, Divine, Vito Russo. And those are kind of luminaries that loom large in pop culture kind of world. And then it's fascinating to tackle something that you and the community, the LGBTQI community, have such a love-hate relationship with.
Yeah.
So what was, because did you want to like scrutinize that love-hate relationship that you have with Cruising, or what was the kind of inciting incident?
Well, for me, my coming out was all tied up in movies, and it was all tied up in Vito Russo's The Celluloid Closet, and it was so great to be able to include Vito in this film. I'm sure everyone here knows Vito Russo was really one of the first, if not the first, gay historian to catalog how LGBT people were represented on film, and Cruising was a flashpoint for him. He wrote about it in his book. He didn't really, come down on one side or another in terms of the protests, although he lived in New York at the time and he was aware of it, of course. But when I read that book, I had to go through every single movie and see every single movie that he talked about, and Cruising was high up on that list. And I had heard about it for years. It's this notorious movie that was almost a forbidden object because it was so hated within the community. And I think when I was living in San Francisco in the early 90s, and they had a screening of it at the Castro, and it was being protested still in the early 90s. Now it doesn't get protested, I don't think, unless there's some protesters outside that we don't know. But I felt it was a great opportunity to take a look at cruising the film, also explore the world and the moment in time in which it was made, in particular put the protest in context of that flashpoint of gay rage that was right after Harvey Milk and Anita Bryant and all the gay bashings in the streets of New York and all our major cities. And then also really important to me was to talk about Addison. And that was not something that starting the film I really knew how deep it was going to go, because I didn't know Pamela, and I didn't know Bob, and it took some digging to find you. Tennille, our AP, is here, and she is really great at finding people who don't necessarily want to be found. And then it got so much more emotional and so much deeper when we heard your story and heard Bob's story. So,
and Pamela, when they did find you, what kind of emotions were you going through? Was it, I'm wondering, was it like, this is too clearly personal, it's thorny, just let it lie? Did you welcome this re-examination of what happened to your brother? Like, how did you initially kind of engage with Jeffrey and the team?
I wasn't keen. In fact, I had removed possessions from Addison's apartment at the end of the month of his death in '77, and I had kept those boxes sealed for 40 years. And then I got an email from Jeffrey telling me what he was hoping to do. And my first question was, how did you find me? And then I realized that I wasn't sure who he was, and I needed to be able to trust him before I could open up. And he sent me copies of his prior work. And for those of you who've seen some of his prior films, you know the delicacy and sensitivity with which he dealt with all of the material. And it was that convinced me to trust him. And then, when he invited me to New York to be interviewed in the fall of 2017, my son, who knew Addison as well, came with me for the interview. But prior to the interview, I knew I had to open those boxes, and I had to familiarize myself with parts of Addison that I didn't even know. And that was a journey. I have to tell you that Addison was charming, charismatic, bright, funny. He was a wonderful dancer. He was very creative with drawing. I had no idea that he was gay, and I've subsequently learned that apparently his first gay experience was when he was in Africa in the Peace Corps. But it was a journey, a real journey. And I'm grateful today to Jeffrey for allowing me to show you Addison's dignity, because it was so painful to appreciate that the only thing that was publicly known about him generally was the horror of his death. And the thing that angered me the most was the attitude of the police at the time, the fact that my parents didn't know about his death in the usual manner. They found out about it on the 6 o'clock news. And later, when the police told me that they had cleared the crime scene and I was able to come and clear his apartment, the fact is, they hadn't. And when I went to the apartment, all of the evidence was still there. And I knew what that meant because I was a practicing lawyer and appreciated that if it wasn't dealt with properly, the break in the continuity of evidence that I was responsible for by opening the door was going to mean that Paul Bateson was not going to ever be convicted. And that enraged me. That's why I wrote the letter to William Hoyt, the assistant district attorney, to say I can live with any kind of a jury result. I can't live with incompetence, and I can't live with the fact that he won't get a trial. And I think that's how Jeffrey ultimately found me, because the letter to Bill Hoyt was in the material that he researched. So I'm grateful to Jeffrey beyond words, and I can't tell you how much Addison's gay friends mean to me, because they surrounded me like a cocoon when I was in New York several times, and forced me to ask them the questions I never got a chance to ask my brother. And we laughed together and cried together, and I learned so much from them. It's strange, in a way, to learn about a sibling after he's gone. But I'm happy that I've lived long enough to see this film finished and to see its reception. I enjoyed all of you laughing at my naivete. It really is a true story. I think that answers your question.
I have many more questions, but let's open up to the crowd right here.
Hi. I found myself wishing the whole time that Addison had seen Cruising and could have written about it. And I was curious if you've seen Cruising or what you know about the film through this film, if you have any thoughts on what Addison would have thought of the whole debacle around the film.
I have never seen Cruising on purpose. It was far too painful to consider doing that, because I knew the inspiration for the film for Friedkin, and I felt he was monetizing something that was pretty sacred to me, and it was important that my brother's dignity be preserved somehow, and that's why I never saw it. What Addison would think of it, I think, is a mystery, because he was a very skillful, talented journalist who had a mastery of words. But I don't know, because of his own involvement, as I now appreciate it, whether he would have been objective or subjective, or whether he would have been sarcastic. I just don't know.
He didn't see Cruising, but he did see The Exorcist, which is crazy to me that he saw that scene with Paul Bateson. And Addison, you know, he his beat was, we didn't get to cover this in the film, but he had the porno beat. And that was a time where porn films, gay porn films, were being reviewed in Variety, and the business was being talked about as a legitimate part of the business. So that's fascinating to me, that he you know, was very much in that world, and it was a time where gay porn, you know, I think that those films influenced Cruising in a big way. And I'm sure William Friedkin was aware of and saw those films that were playing at the Adonis, and even populated Cruising with some of the actors in those films. The first victim in the first scene of Cruising is a pretty well-known porn star named Malo, was his stage name. And that's crazy to me. And if you look at Cruising enough times, you'll start spotting these porn stars peppered throughout the film.
I didn't make that connection to it, so that's...
There's somebody with an arm very high.
Right there, yeah.
Were you aware of the power of Arthur Bell before you went into this? Because for many of us, when I was still in the closet in the 70s, he opened the door for me and covered many other stories.
Mm-hmm. Brenton Judell, everybody, yes.
So, this thing, your film will sort of make people appreciate and research artists, other artists.
I hope so. Arthur Bell was part of the gay movement from the very, very beginning, and he was part of the Gay Activist Alliance, and I believe he was on the media committee, and he, along with Arnie Kantrowitz and Vito Russo, I mean, they were the people who were talking about, yes, we need to change the laws and attitudes, but we also need to change the culture. And we need to look at how we are being depicted on TV and in movies and in books, etc. And he was somebody who was very much on the forefront of that. And he wrote a great book called Dancing the Gay Lit Blues, which is a very valuable first-person memoir of the early days of gay liberation. Fascinating guy. but he was not all peaches and cream, as Michael said.
Indeed. Two quick questions, maybe. When I saw right here, yes, sir.
Jeffrey, I wonder what you think of the movie Cruising. It looks ridiculous. The dialogue and people laughing out loud. You know, I mean, what's your verdict?
I mean, I think everyone's going to have their own point of view on this. I was trying to explain this to my niece and nephew. I have no context for any of this, and no Al Pacino from Jack and Jill with Adam Sandler, which I hate vague. Anyway, I mean, personally, I can understand why it was protested so heavily, but I feel like it's such a valuable document of that time and place. Yes, there are some ridiculous things about it. The script is kind of ridiculous. But look at those streets. You get to see those streets. You get to see those guys who just walked off the street into those scenes. And there's something really powerful about it. And it's depicting gay men as strong and powerful and sexy. And, you know, that's just something you hadn't really seen before, except in porn. You know, that's another connection to the porn world. So I think it's valuable. And I think the kids today who see it for the first time, they have none of the baggage from the protests. And they just have a great time. You know, if you go to a midnight screening of Cruising, and this is going to be screening at Frameline with Cruising in a few weeks, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So, you know, if you have a chance to see Cruising on a big screen, it's a whole different experience. So, yeah. But don't ask me to explain the ending, because I have no idea.
I think not even Pacino knows.
Is he here, by the way?
Yeah.
Al?
He's backstage.
Okay.
One more question, right here.
Yeah, I think the movie does a beautiful job of sort of the ambivalence around William Friedkin and sort of neither hero nor villain, or, you know, and I'm wondering if you had considered approaching him, or
Yeah.
what's the deal with that?
He's a prickly guy. You know, I approached him pretty early on in the process, and I have some real choice emails from him. I think he was burned by the film, and people made a lot of assumptions about him, that he was a homophobe with an agenda, which I don't think at all is the case. I think maybe, and he got ill and passed away during the making of this film. I think maybe if I'd kept on working on him, I might have been able to sit him down. But we hopefully represented him through his interviews and through excerpts from his book, which is a great read. So yeah, I mean, I hope he would be happy with it. I don't know.
Do you know Al Pacino's aware of this?
I don't know. You probably know better than I do.
As far as we haven't heard from Al.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably 6 blocks from here. I don't know what he's doing, but I don't know. If anyone knows Al, you know, let him know. He's probably aware of it.
Yeah, maybe a postscript.
Yeah.
Let's give them one more round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You bought this at Chico's, Mom? You bought this. You have the same shirt.
Hurry up, you're killing me. Oh my God, here's my All right, we're good. We got it.